Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we'll be completing in today's video. This cow carton, a little milk carton looking like a cow. I thought it was a really cute concept. Really fun to draw, like the carton shape, and then add all the fun face details, the snout, the ears, the horns, all that good stuff. So we use a lot of different tools to get our finished results today, so I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you maybe learn something new as we go. But if you're new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer exclusive tutorials over on Patreon. That's linked in the description below if you want to check that out. If you join us over there, you get access to exclusive tutorials every month, along with sneak peeks of what we're drawing over here on YouTube every week. And it really helps support me to keep making these free tutorials here, so I really appreciate it. And if you join right now, you get access to all the tutorials that I've posted thus far. I'll post some on the screen here for you to see. But before we get started on today's drawing, the only thing that you will need to do is download the color palette. I have it linked in the description below. It's totally free to download. Just save the file to your iPad and then double tap it or click on it and click open in Procreate, and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. Otherwise, there's nothing else to download. I will post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen here and in the description below so that you can use those to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we will get started. Okay, this is the color palette that we'll be working with today. So let's just go ahead and get started. We're going to start by setting our background color. Then we'll draw a bunch of rectangles and shapes to make our carton. We'll add all the details and then we'll kind of finish off the background. So on our layer menu, we're going to click on this background color layer to open up our color selector for the background and select this first color on the first row to set it to that. Then we'll go back to our layer menu just to get out of that background color layer and make sure we're on layer 1. And we will go ahead and get started on our carton. So we're going to use these 3 to 4 colors on this top row after starting with the third one to kind of get our different shades of the carton based on the sides and stuff so they can all look a little different. So we're going to start with this third one on the top row. We're going to grab our selection tool, set it to rectangle, and turn on color fill. And I'm going to draw a nice good rectangle here, nice and tall, but we want room on the top for the top part, so I'm gonna have to move it down a little bit, but maybe about like this, pretty skinny. But we can still grab it with our arrow tool on freeform to resize it or anything and kind of move it around. I'm going to move mine down a bit so that I have more room on the top, maybe about like this. And I'm a little to the right as well. So I have snapping turned on in the bottom left, so if I were to snap it to the center of the screen where we see our vertical line, I'm going to go to the right from that a little bit. Okay, we're going to go to our layer menu. We're going to make a duplicate of this rectangle now, so slide to the left and hit duplicate. Grab the bottom one. We're going to recolor it to this fourth color on the top row. So I'm going to grab that, and we're just going to drag and drop it into our shape. It's behind this other one, so you didn't see the color change, but if you go to your layer menu, you can see it change just slightly there, and we'll see it here in a second when we pop it out. But before we do that, we're going to turn on our 2D grid just to help us get some perfectly straight lines when we go to distort it. So on my gear icon under canvas, I'm going to click to turn on the drawing guide. It gives me the 2D grid automatically. I'm just going to leave that, but if you need to, you can click this edit drawing guide to switch it to 2D grid. We don't want assisted drawing turned on, just leave it as is. I don't mess with the size or anything. If you want to change the opacity of your lines, go ahead and do so. I might lower the opacity a little bit, but we want to see them just a smidge there, and then click done. Okay, but now we have our new layer back here that we're on, the bottom one that we recolored. Grab it with our arrow tool on freeform. I am first just going to move it straight out a little bit, and this is about maybe as much of the side as I want to see right here. So again, it's maybe like a third to a quarter, like a third to a half the size of this first one. And I like that, so I'm going to grab that back with my arrow tool on freeform. I'm going to grab this right side and drag it on over until it kind of snaps there, or until we're just barely overlapping with our front one there, no gap showing. But we just want it really close to the edge of that left edge of our lighter rectangle there. Okay, then we're going to click distort, and we're going to move our bottom left corner up quite a bit to get a good angle there. And then maybe just pick a line if you're close to a line, and I'm going to go right on that line, that vertical line there. So that's my angle for my side piece. And then I'm going to grab this top one and bring it down just a smidge. So it's just barely lower than our horizontal line of our front piece. So it's barely like going downwards on this like horizontal line that I have on my grid. But then it's on that same line on the left side as our bottom one is, so that this is a perfectly vertical line on the left. So we just wanted to keep that going. So that looks good there. Okay, now we need to make our top part. So we're going to do a similar thing. Let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer, and drag it to the very bottom of all of our layers. I'm going to use the same color that I have, this fourth one on the top row, and our selection tool again on rectangle and color fill. And I'm going to make a rectangle that's essentially the size of the top of this lighter piece here from left to right. I'm going to start underneath it a smidge, draw across, go up a little ways, maybe about to here, and then let that go to fill it in. And it doesn't have to be perfect, we'll adjust it. So grab it with your arrow tool on freeform. I'm first gonna make this edge match up over here. So it's like the same exact size as our top piece sticking up from it. Grab that with your arrow tool again, switch it back to distort, and then this top middle button, I'm just gonna drag that to the left and it should stay horizontal. And you can drag it up or down if you need to make it taller or shorter, but maybe about right here to where the top like left corner here maybe meets up with like roughly halfway through our side shape here, like so. Adjust that any more if you need to. If your corner gets off here a little bit or something, go ahead and like try to fix that up. That might happen. That's okay, or switch it back to freeform and extend it a smidge. Anything you need to do, use your eraser tool if you need to, if it's like sticking out there. I'll use my eraser just on freeform just to clean it all up. That looks good. Okay, layering, I'm going to add a new layer, drag it to the very bottom of my layers. I'm going to grab my darkest color now, the fifth one on the top row, and our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. We're finally going to use a brush. My opacity for the brush is at 100. My size is going to be at like 10%. And I am just going to draw a line to connect a shape on the side here, a little triangle shape. So from this point, I'm going to draw down to this point, hold that down until it turns nice and straight. Click this line button at the top if you need to adjust it so it meets up nicely with that point. And that corner, it's behind it though. So then I can connect it back here, even if it's messy, and fill it in. Make sure there's no gaps or anything. So you should have a shape now that looks like this, nice and milk carton-like. Okay, we're gonna make the little lip across the top of the carton now. So to do that, we'll go to our layer menu, add another new layer, drag it below all of our layers, and we're gonna use the first lighter color that we did, the third one on the top row. Selection tool again, rectangle and color fill turned on. I'm going to make a skinnier rectangle this time. Again, we're behind everything, so I'm going to make a nice skinny rectangle all the way across from side to side of that lighter area. Grab it with your arrow tool on freeform if you need to adjust it all, but we want it to meet up on the left, meet up on the right. I mean, at a decent height, we're going to round the corners and then recolor the top a little bit, but adjust the height also if you need to at this point. That looks great. I'm going to round the corners now. So with my eraser tool, which I also have set to the monoline brush under the calligraphy tab at like 30%, I'm going to round these corners. So I'm going to go to 1 and just erase like a little curved line there. Smooth that out. That looks good. Same thing on the other corner. Trying to make them as even as you can. You can always like start smaller and then get bigger if that's helpful. That looks good. Okay, I think we're done with our grid now, so I'm going to shut that off. So on my gear icon, I'm going to just turn off the drawing guide. I just want to be able to see everything a little bit better, so that is helpful. So now with that off, the last thing we're going to do is recolor the top band of this piece we just created. So on our layer menu, this piece at the very bottom that we just made, click on that layer and turn on alpha lock. And then we're going to grab our 6th color on the top row, our selection tool again, rectangle and color fill still turned on, and I'm going to start on the top outside left corner, drag and just cover like maybe a third or so of that top little bit there, and then let that go so it fills in just that area of our little lip at the top there. Beautiful, that looks great. So with that done, that completes our whole milk carton shape. So everything should look pretty good. If you need to adjust anything, go ahead and do so. For example, mine don't meet up quite at the corner down here. I'm going to grab that side piece again, maybe on distort or freeform would work too, to like drag it down to meet up more nicely. I might need my eraser or something, kind of whatever you need to do to make that all look nice and connected and everything. Okay, and then once you're happy with everything, we're actually going to snap it all together. If you want to, it will take up some layers, but you can make a duplicate of them first. So you could group them all together. So select one side right on all the others and click group. Then you can make a duplicate of the group. Turn the bottom one off, so I'm going to minimize it with the arrow, turn it off with the checkbox, and then on this top group, I'm going to click on it and click flatten. And now we have our milk carton shape, but we also have our separate pieces here if we ever need to go back to them. But we really need this just because we're going to clip to it and we're going to do some selecting and stuff, and we need the whole shape to on one layer to do so. So if you don't have a ton of layers to work with, you might just need to flatten them all together anyway without having this extra duplicate group down here, but do whatever works for you. But now we have our milk carton all on one layer. We can grab it with our arrow tool on uniform. If we want to like resize it at all or move it around, we can center it now. So with our snapping turned on in the bottom left, we can center it on our vertical and horizontal line here to get it directly in the center of our canvas as it is as a whole. But do whatever you would like to do there. Okay, and now we can move on. So next up, let's go ahead and make the little cap on the top of our carton here where the milk comes out. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer. We're going to work with these lighter 3 colors on the second row. We're actually going to grab the second in the group there, so 5th one on the second row. We're going to stick with our same monoline brush at 10%, and we're going to make a little oval here kind of on the center of this piece. So I'm going to make the oval shape, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Click the edit ellipse button at the top if you need to adjust it. But essentially we want the angle to be kind of like this, kind of like the sides of our milk carton top here. And it's just going to be kind of centered here from like top to bottom and left to right in this area. So I have a little space below it, a little space above it, and a little angle there. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. I'm going to go to my layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer. So slide to left and hit duplicate, be on the top one. We're going to recolor that to our lighter color now, the 4th one on the second row. And we're going to just drag and drop into that layer. It'll get a little bit lighter. We're going to grab it with our arrow tool and we're going to move it up and to the right a little bit. And it's okay if it sticks up over our little top little carton piece. That's okay. It's like nice and 3D sticking off of our carton there. So that looks good there. I'm going to go to my layer menu, go back to my previous layer, the one below it, go back to that same color, which was slightly darker, the 5th one on the second row, and our monoline brush, and I'm going to connect them now on where this little gap is to make it look like one 3D shape. So from like the furthest edge here, draw a line up to meet that other one, hold it down until it turns nice and straight. Make sure it's not sticking out. You can click your edit line button if you need to adjust it. Make sure it looks like one nice smooth transition. And then fill in any gaps there. Same thing on the other side, a nice line, hold it down, edit the line, make it nice and smooth looking, fill in any gaps. Okay, then we're just going to make some ridges on it. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a layer right above the one that we're on, click on it and set it to a clipping mask so that we only draw within this shape. And then I'm going to grab my darker color now, the last one on the second row, 6th in line, same monoline brush at 10%, and I am going to draw some ridges. So I'm going to make a line through it, hold it down at this angle, and then touch your finger on the screen to find a line that kind of works. We'll rotate it at the end, but we just want them all to be the same. So I'm just going to pick this angle. I'll draw another one next to it, hold it down, touch my finger on the screen so they all hit that same angle. Try to kind of space them similarly each time you do it, make them nice and long. even though they're only going within the shape. If you ever need to, you can click the line button at the top and just move it around. Don't touch the blue dots or you'll mess up the angle, but just you can space them a little bit differently if you need to. And do as many of those as you can through this piece. If you have room for another one on the edge, great. If not, that's okay. Okay, then we'll grab the whole layer with our arrow tool, and since we're on a clipping mask, it's on its own layer, so we're not going to mess up our base shape. But now, essentially, I'm going to rotate this with this green button to kind of match that side angle a little bit better that we made, and then move it around too if you need to. So if you need to knock one off, or space this whole thing out differently in this space here, go ahead and do so. Maybe we want these lines to be a little bit more parallel with the ones that we created to connect our lid pieces, so it looks nice and natural like this. But we wanted to draw them all to be the same, so that's why we used our finger touching method. Okay, now we want to add a little bit of a shadow to the lines to make them look a little bit more 3D as well. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer, so slide to the left and hit duplicate. Grab the bottom one. We're just going to simply click our wand icon, Gaussian blur. We'll drag this up a little bit to 3% or so. Grab it with our arrow tool and we're going to move it down and to the right so that there's a little bit of a shadow down and to the right of our lines. You can tap around if you need to on the screen to just barely move it. We just want the littlest bit of a shadow right there next to those lines like so. Okay, and then that's it for our little lid piece. We will come back and make a shadow around it later, but that's it. I'm going to go ahead and snap those layers together, all 4 of them, above our milk carton. And then if you need to, you can grab it with your arrow tool on uniform and you can adjust the size or move it around or anything. But that base circle that we made, or that base oval, should be centered on this piece here, from top to bottom and from left to right. Next up is going to be our cow face. So we are going to start on that now. I am going to start with the snout and then draw everything kind of around that. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer to the very top of all my layers. I'm going to grab my first paint color, the first one on the second row, and our monoline brush again. And I'm actually going to turn the 2D grid back on. Maybe we shouldn't have turned it off. Gear icon under canvas, I'm just going to turn it right back on. The drawing guide should be the same, but if you need to edit it, go ahead and do so. So we're going to make this snout, and it's going to be an oval, and we want it to be perfectly horizontal, but it's going to try to snap it to a circle. So on this frontmost area here, the main rectangle that we made, a little above halfway, I'm going to make this oval. So a nice oval shape, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Then click this ellipse button at the top. So the only reason I want the 2D grid on is just so that I can line up these 2 dots, the top and bottom one, on a line, and that makes it perfectly horizontal. I'm also going to move it a smidge to the right so it's not quite centered on my piece here. It's going to be a little bit to the right of what center would be, and your grid will maybe help you with that too a little bit, so you can kind of count the squares next to it. It should be a little further to the right, and again, a little over halfway. I think this looks good here. Then I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. There's a good amount of space on the left and right side, a little bit more on the left. Layer menu, I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer, so slide to the left and hit duplicate, grab the bottom one. I'm going to refill it with our darker paint color, so I'm going to grab that second one on the second row, drag and drop to fill it in. It's behind this other one, so you can't see it. But let's grab our arrow tool on uniform, and I'm going to grab this top left corner and increase it a little bit, and the bottom left corner and increase it a little bit. So we should see this darker color mainly on the left side, and the top and bottom a little bit like so. Okay, I'm going to go to my layer menu. I'm going to add a new layer above my dark one here, and we're going to add another shadow to it before we snap them together. So I'm going to add a new layer right above this one, click on it and set it to a clipping mask, and then we're going to click the N and set this layer style to multiply. So this is going to create a shadow on our darker orangey pink piece. So I'm going to grab, for the color, this last one on the top row, 7th in line. And for my brush, I'm going to use my soft brush under the airbrushing category now. We'll use this quite a bit today as well, so go ahead and find that. My opacity is at 100. My size will do pretty low, like 5%. And I'm just going to add this to the bottom of the nose and then kind of let it fade off on that left side there about halfway up. but nice and dark otherwise on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and turn my grid off again. So gear icon, turn that off. And just we can see things a little bit better as well. So that looks pretty good for my nose shape. I'm going to go to my layer menu. I'm going to snap all three of these layers together. So my pink, my lighter pink, my darker pink, and the one in between them that we just made onto one layer. If you need to, you can grab it with your arrow tool and resize it or anything. I might go to freeform and make it a little bit taller and then a little skinnier as well. And then feel free to try to replace it on this white area here, the front rectangle. It should be a little further to the right in terms of like the lighter pink area, like so. And again, a little over halfway from top to bottom. Okay, we want the nose to look a little bit more rounded now where these colors come together so it's not such a harsh line. So we're going to go to our layer menu, click on this layer, and turn on alpha lock. And then we're going to grab our smudge tool. So that's this little pointer finger at the top, and open that up so that we can select a brush for it. And we're going to do the soft brush again under the airbrushing category. For my smudge, the opacity is at 100, size is pretty low at like 2 or 3%. And I'm just going to smudge on this line where the two come together. And I'm just going to go always in the direction of the line. So never smudging like left to right, but just smudging right on it, moving in the direction of the line. Going over it a few times to really blend them together. Do it along the bottom and the top and the side. And the reason that we have alpha lock turned on is so that when we get to the edge over here, it doesn't like smudge into this open area. It stays within the shape that we have. But do a good amount of that until we get it just to look a little bit more rounded, like so. Okay, and then that was probably the more difficult piece out of all the pieces that we need to make. The horns and the ears won't be as bad. The eyes and stuff will be super easy. So let's go ahead and do that now. So on my layer menu, I'm going to go ahead and add a new layer above this one. Grab my grayish color, my really dark gray color, the third one on the second row, and back to our monoline brush. And first, let's make the little nostrils on his nose. So I'm going to start just kind of to the left of center here. Make a nice vertical oval, hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly vertical. If it snaps to a circle, you just do it a little too close to a circle shape so you can redraw it more oval-like if you would like to, or you can just use what it gave you and adjust it by clicking the edit ellipse button at the top. Try to make it as vertical as you can, and then fill it in. Maybe a good size like this. Looks good. If you need to, you can resize it with your arrow tool on freeform or uniform, but set a good size that you like. I think that looks good, and then we'll make a duplicate of it. So on my layer menu, I'll slide to the left and hit duplicate, grab it with my arrow tool. With snapping turned on the bottom left, I'm just going to drag it straight to the right, and you'll see these 3 blue lines that line them up together so that they're perfectly lined up. So I'll space it out a good ways, whatever looks good to you. And then on our layer menu, we can snap those 2 layers together as well once you're happy with the spacing. And then if you need to, you can grab them with your arrow tool and you can move them around further, but they should be like centered in our lighter pink area there. So something like that looks good. Okay, layer menu, new layer, same color, same brush and everything, and we're going to make the eyes and eyebrows on the right side, and then we'll duplicate it for the left. So up and to the right of the snout a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and make a good perfect circle for the eye. Hold it down until it turns nice and smooth. Touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. Set a size, maybe something like this, and go ahead and fill it in. Grab it with your arrow tool on uniform if you need to resize it or move it around at all. But nice and small, cute little eye, that looks good. Same layer, same brush, same color. I'm going to go up and to the right of that a little bit and make like an angled oval above the eye. Hold that down. This is our eyebrow. So once you held it down and it turns nice and smooth, you can click this ellipse button at the top to adjust it if you need to. Feel free to move it around, change the angle of it, change the size. This looks good though. I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. Okay. Then on my layer menu, I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer. So slide to the left and hit duplicate. Grab it with our arrow tool and click flip horizontal. And then again with snapping turned on, I'm just going to drag it all the way over, keeping it lined up on those 3 blue lines so that it stays nice and lined up with my other one. And just kind of try to make the distance from the edges about the same. So I have a little bit of room on the edge here, a little bit of room on the edge here. So move the other one around too if you need to, but that looks good to me. On my layer menu, I'm going to snap those 3 layers together now, so our nostrils and our eyes and our eyebrows. all on one layer there. I'm going to add a layer right above them. Grab our bright white color, the fourth one on the second row, and our monoline brush. I'm going to increase the size to 30%, and we're just going to make a little white dot in the top right corner of each eye. So top right corner and top right corner. And that looks good. Okay, we just have the horns and the ears to do, and then all the spots, and then we can add some highlights and shadows and be done with it. So again, that was probably one of the more challenging parts of the whole thing, but I hope yours is looking really cute. So next up is the horns and the ears. Let's do the horn next. So we're going to make them on this left side, and then we'll duplicate it for the right side. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to grab my first horn color, the first one on the bottom row. Okay. Same idea, monoline brush. We're going to make a little oval on the top left, or on this top corner here, up and to the left of this eyeball, but the top right corner of this left rectangle. So I'm going to make a little oval, hold it down. It's going to be angled slightly like this. I'm going to click the edit ellipse button at the top, but it's going to be angled slightly like this to start. So maybe something like that. Go ahead and fill that in. Then we're going to make the horn part coming off of it. So on the left edge, and my monoline brush is still at 30%. So I'm going to start on the left edge. I'm going to curve upwards like this, hold it down, adjust that if you'd like to. So click this edit arc button, but we're just going to come back down to this so you can kind of get a sense of what that's going to look like, but adjust this curve if you would like to. Make sure it meets up nicely with your oval down there. Then from here, we're going to just curve back, hold it down. Click this edit arc button again to adjust it again if you need to. Make it sure it lines up nicely at the top. And back to our base oval. Make sure you like the curve of it, and then fill that in. And that is our horn. If you like the shape and stuff of it, but you just want to adjust the size, you can grab with your arrow tool on uniform or freeform and adjust the size. But I think that looks pretty good. Now this time we're going to shadow and highlight it on the same layer. So on my layer menu, I'm just going to click on this layer and turn on alpha lock. Grab my darker color next, second one on the bottom row. Back to our soft brush under the airbrushing category. Size at like 3 or 4%. And I'm just going to add a shadow kind of towards the bottom. So I'm just going to go lightly along the bottom edge of it here, like so. Then same thing with our next color, third one on the bottom row, a little bit lighter. We're going to hit the top of it with that, like so. So we get 3 kind of blended colors there nicely. Okay, that's our horn. And I'm going to duplicate it now for the other side. So I'm going to go to my layer menu, make a duplicate of it. So slide to the left and hit duplicate. Drag this one below our main shape. Arrow tool. Click flip horizontal. You won't see it because it's behind it. Drag it on over here, keeping it lined up if you can on these 3 blue lines so that you know it's hitting that same side on the other side. And just have it stick off that top right corner there, like so. So we don't want to see like the base of the shape where it looks like it's floating. We want it to look like it's attached to it on that side. So bring it in a bit so we see just part of it sticking out there. Awesome. Now same thing for our ear. So I'm going to add that above my horn layer at the very top, a new layer for my ear. We're going to grab this third color on the top row. We're going to end up changing it to this side color, but we want to be able to see it first. So we're going to start with this third color on the top row. Back to our monoline brush. And I'm going to start a little under my horn, but more like in the middle of this area. So like right smack dab in the middle from left to right, a little under the horn. So I'm going to start there and draw a curved line, maybe going off the left side of the carton. And then I held that down to a nice curve. Click this edit arc button if you need to adjust it at all. Nice and curvy there. Then I'm going to start at this point and make another curved line coming back in. Hold that down. They don't have to connect on this side, but they do need to connect on the left side. So I held that down. I'll adjust it there, but they can be open on the right side to make that a little thicker at the top there, like so. Then I'm just going to kind of connect them with a line and fill them in. Okay, and then on my layer menu, I'm going to add a new layer below this one. So right above my horn layer, below my white layer, grab my pink color again, the darker pink, the second one on the second row. And I'm going to start at that same point and go a little bit lower and come back in underneath it to create like the other part of the ear that we can see. So again, I did another good arc, held it down, click the edit arc button. So make sure this tip lines up. a little curve there is all, and then it connects back under the right side here, so it just sinks right under that. And then I'm just going to kind of either fill it in with my brush or connect it and fill it in, whichever works. So we get it to look like this. So adjust either of those if you need to get a shape that you like this. Then we're going to add a shadow to this pink layer. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a layer above it. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask. Click the N and set it to multiply again. So just like we did before on our snout. We're going to grab our last color on the top row, 7th in line, and our soft brush again at pretty low 3 or 4%. And I'm just going to add a little shadow to this top area there, like so. Okay, now we're going to go to our top layer here that's set to this like slightly lighter color, and we're going to change it to our base color that it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to go to that layer, grab my 4th color on the top row, and drag and drop to fill it in. Now we want to be able to see it a little bit better, so we're going to go to our layer menu, click on it and turn on alpha lock, and then grab our lighter color again, 3rd one on the top row. And we're just going to add a little highlight with this soft brush on like the left side mainly at the top there. We don't want to like see this weird line that we drew here, but we just want to see like this top like line of the ear is all. So once you get something like that, so we can kind of see it a little bit. It's okay if it mainly blends in, but we just want to see it a little bit there. That looks good. Then once you're happy with that, I'm going to snap all of those layers together. So the white layer, the pink layer, and the layer in between them. So our ear is all in one layer. Then you can grab it with your arrow tool on uniform or freeform or whatever, and you can make it bigger, smaller, move it, rotate it, anything like that. I'm just going to set mine there. I think that looks good. And then we'll make a duplicate for the other side. So on my layer menu, make a duplicate of this layer, drag one all the way below it above that bottom horn, but below our milk carton. Grab it with our arrow tool, click flip horizontal, and we'll drag it on over here. Again, trying to keep it lined up on those 3 blue lines if you can. And again, we only want to see part of it sticking off there on that other side, like so. That is it for our main pieces. It looks really funny without its spots, but we're going to add those now, and that'll hopefully help bring a lot of it together, and then we'll add some final shadows and highlights. So on our layer menu, let's go ahead and add a layer right above our milk carton layer, and that's why we have all of our milk carton on one layer. So this is where we're going to draw our spots. We aren't going to clip it to our milk carton shape, even though we would like to, because we're going to add a clipping mask to our spots. So we can't add a clipping mask to a clipping mask, so we're going to do something different. So we're on our new layer above our milk carton. We're going to grab our spot color, which is the 6th one on the top row, and go back to our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab at 30%. And we're going to make our spots. So nothing too crazy here. I'll make one maybe that extends over these 2 pieces here. So boom, boom, nice and wavy. Bring it together and fill it in, knowing that anything outside is going to be cut off. And it changes angles and stuff, so you can try to kind of keep that in mind. Like I might make one here that goes underneath our ear, and I might kind of try to make it look like it changes angles right there. Something like that. Do what you gotta do. Keep making them, filling them in, smooth them out if you need to. To get some nice and smooth lines, I usually just try to draw pretty quick, or smooth them out after the fact is fine too. But there's spots they can be kind of wobbly, that's okay. We'll just add a few of these, and again, we're going to add a clipping mask that shows that this side gets darker, so that'll also help make them look more 3D. So don't worry too much about that. I don't want to make one that goes over this part. That wouldn't work because that's like inside the carton, so just try to avoid that if you can. And I also don't want to make one that goes over this. So again, avoid that if possible. Maybe I'll even make like a full spot that we can see here. And then one maybe off this back corner. Okay, so get a good few of those around. And then what we're going to do to get rid of the excess is we are going to go to our layer menu. We are going to click on this milk carton layer, click on it, and click select. It's probably going to fill in dark gray. Just unclick color fill, and it should go back to normal. If it doesn't, turn off color fill, undo it, and then redo it. So go back and click select again on that layer. But anyway, now that you see there's diagonal lines outside the milk carton, we're going to click invert, and then there should be diagonal lines inside the milk carton. That means that everything outside of it is being selected since we inverted it. Then we're going to just switch straight back to our spots layer. You should still see the diagonal lines inside the carton. And then click our arrow tool and it selects everything outside the carton. And we're just going to drag that off our layer. And all we're left with is everything inside the carton. So that looks great. Now we're going to make the clipping mask on this to make them look darker on the areas where the milk carton changes angles. So on our layer menu, I'm going to add a layer above our spots layer. Click on it and set it to a clipping mask, and click the N and set it to multiply. Grab our last color on the top row, 7th in line. Okay, and we're going to use our rectangle tool again. So grab our selection tool, rectangle and color fill turned on. And the first one we're going to do is this upper area here. So I'm going to start outside quite a ways, but make sure you can see all of it that you need to cover. I'm going to drag my selection tool down and hit and land right where that corner is. And it should hit that perfectly right there. If it's not quite perfect, you can grab it with your arrow tool and it's on its own layer so you can like resize it and stuff. So it hits right where that angle changes. We're going to do the same thing to the left side over here. But let's go ahead and add it on a new layer just in case we need to move it. So layer menu, new layer, click on it and set it to a clipping mask. Click the N and set it to multiply. So we're both clipped to that same bottom, that same spots layer. Selection tool again, rectangle and color fill turned on. I'm going to start outside. Again, make sure you can see it all, our outside left corner. I'm going to start there and drag until I hit that line where it changes from this to this. See how that looks? So the shadow on your spot should match up with where that rectangle changes there. If it doesn't, grab it with your arrow tool. You can move it around, resize it, whatever you need to do. But now it should look something like this. That looks great. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to our layer menu and we can just snap those 3 layers together if you're happy with them. Our 2 multiply layers onto our spots layer. That looks great. Or you can just snap your 2 multiply layers together and leave them clipped. Whatever works for you. That looks good. Next up, we're going to add some more shadows to our piece, but we're again going to have to like cut out of our carton shape again. So I'm going to add a new layer above our previous multiply layer that we just made. So we're underneath our nose, we're underneath our little circle piece, our little spout here at the top, we're underneath our ears on the left side and stuff, all that. We're going to be on that new layer, click the N on it and set it to multiply again, same color. We're going to switch our brush to the soft brush under the airbrushing category, opacity 100, size at like 5. And the reason we're doing this is we can't clip to our carton shape because we'd be underneath our spots and we want to add a shadow over our spots in some places. So we're on this new layer and we're going to again have to cut out of our carton shape in order to clean it up. But that's okay. We don't need to do much. So again, new layer, multiply. We have our soft brush on this kind of grayish brownish color. And we're going to first start next to our little spout here at the top. And I'm going to make a shadow on the bottom and left side of it a little bit. So have that poking out there like so. Change your brush size if you need to, if this doesn't work for you. I might lower mine a little bit to like 3 to 4% and do that again. So staying pretty close to my shape here. Just a little bit of a shadow coming off. Awesome. Okay, now next to our snout, again, a little shadow to the bottom left of it or so. So make that there. Beautiful. And then we want a little shadow next to our horn as well. So our light's coming from like kind of just the top. So I'm just going to have it come kind of like straight down a little bit, a little shadow there. And maybe make like the slightest little like horn shape, kind of like mimicking it just a smidge there, nothing crazy. And then same thing for our ear. We're going to add a shadow underneath our ear. And this is where it goes off the side of the carton. That's okay. You want a good shadow underneath it that it's casting, since that's sticking off quite a ways. Okay, now we just want to get rid of that little bit that fell outside of our carton. So again, we're going to go back to our layer menu. Go to our carton layer, click on it and click select, turn color fill off. Click invert so that we see diagonal lines inside the carton. Go back to our shadow layer. You should still see the diagonal lines. Grab it with your arrow tool and drag that off the screen. And this is what we're left with. Okay, Now we're going to do that kind of probably one more time because now we're going to add some highlights to it. So on my layer menu, I'm going to add a layer right above this multiply layer that we just created and click the N on it and set it to add. If you're running out of layers, again, feel free to snap some together. You could snap your back ear and your horn layer together. You could get rid of this group at the bottom if you still have it, if you're happy with how things are looking, whatever you need to do. But I'm going to be on my new layer, and we're going to switch actually to our third color on the top row. Same soft brush at like 3 or 4%. And I am going to go ahead and hit the sides of my carton. I might increase to like 5%, but I'm going to hit the sides here where the light's going to hit. So I'm going to hit right here. It might turn super bright. That's okay. We're going to get rid of some of it, and we're going to lessen the opacity a little bit. But I'm going to go kind of like along the right side till we get towards the bottom there. Then I'm also going to hit like this right side at the top little piece there and hit across the top of that a little bit. Awesome. Let's see. Maybe I'll hit this seam here a little bit. I might lower my size for that to like 3 to 4%. I might just hit across this seam here. Kind of highlight that. Highlight it behind my horn over here as well. Maybe highlight this seam on that side also. Until we get towards the bottom. Okay. So something like that looks good. Now we're going to get rid of the excess. So layer menu, back to my carton layer, click on it, click select. You shouldn't have to turn color fill off this time, but if you do, go ahead and if you need to, go ahead and do so. Click invert. You should see diagonal lines inside the carton. Go back to our add layer here. You should still see the diagonal lines. Grab it with your arrow tool, drag it off the screen, and now we're left with these nice highlights here. Again, they might be a little too bright, so on my layer menu, I'm going to click the A on this layer and just drag the opacity down until I like the way it looks, maybe to like 60% or so. Okay, and then very lastly, we're going to have some highlights on our other pieces, so we're going to add that to the top. So a new layer at the very top, click the N and set it to add again. Same color, same brush. I might lower my size even a little bit more to like 2 or 3%. And again, we'll probably lower the opacity of this when we're done. But I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of a highlight to the edge of my snout here, very, very lightly. And we're not clipped to anything. So that's why I'm just going very, very lightly. I'll lower my size even a little bit more so that I just can hit the snout right on the tippy top there. Just a little bit here and there for a few little highlights. Nothing too crazy. We'll do the same thing on our ears maybe, but again, just kind of inside the edge there. And again, the ears, maybe a smidge. But I'm kind of just trying to draw pretty light so I don't have to adjust it. But again, just the nose and the ears mainly to kind of finish it off there. So that is it. If you need to lower the opacity of that layer, go ahead and do so. But otherwise, I think that that finishes it off very nicely. And then the very last thing is to finish our background now. So we're going to add a shadow below our milk coming off of it and it's a little gradient around the background. So let's add a new layer to the very top, drag it all the way to the bottom, right above our background color layer. I'm going to click the N on this layer and set it to multiply. We're going to grab our first gray color down here on the bottom row, the fourth one in line. Our same soft brush, I'm going to increase the size a bit to maybe 10%. And with this first gray color, we're going to come off this corner, the back left corner, and we're going to come straight off at like an angle all the way to the bottom of the canvas. Do the same all the way across. From the bottom right corner to the bottom left corner, coming off the bottom of the canvas there to create like a little shadow, like so. Then we're going to deepen it a little bit, so grab our next color, inline, fifth one on the bottom row, a little bit darker. We'll probably just use the same size, but I'm just going to stay a little bit closer to the milk carton now, all the way across. Deepen that up there, like so. And then our last color, the darkest one, sixth one on the bottom row, I'll lower my size to maybe 5, and we'll stick even closer to the milk carton this time. Still pretty lightly though, so we get a nice like fluffy gradient there. It doesn't look too harsh or anything, but a good shadow, like so. Lastly, we're going to add a little bit of variation to our background. So on my layer menu, add a new layer, drag it below the one that we were just on, so we're right above our background color. Just a normal layer this time. We're going to grab our second color on the top row, same soft brush, just increase the size to like 20%. And I'm just going to go around the corners a little bit to add a little bit of darker color there. So it kind of highlights our milk carton even more, all the way to the corner. Kind of just lightly going around towards the inside of that so that it blends it nicely. And since we did the multiply layer with our shadow, it gets darker there as well, so it still keeps that same shadow effect. And once that's done, that is it for our drawing today. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you like the way that yours turned out, and I hope that you maybe learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know what you thought in the comments. The likes and comments really help out my channel to show my videos to more people, so I really appreciate it. And then make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so that you don't miss out on any future tutorials from me. And then if you'd like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it. So go ahead and post it there and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so that you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.